So, hello and welcome to our next session in the Tarot On series of 2020 as we work through the global pandemic and the great global lockdown of 2020 in various countries. At the moment, I think in the UK we're in the second week of our total lockdown. So people are shielding themselves if they're very vulnerable to the coronavirus, and our Prime Minister Boris Johnson is currently in hospital with it, so I'm hoping that he will make a good recovery, and anyone who is going through the illness at the moment, I also hope that they look after themselves. So at the moment we are pulling a couple of cards every day. I'm pulling those on my personal page for meditation and contemplation, and I'm using the Philosopher's Stone deck, which is this one over here. Unfortunately it is out of print at the moment, so this is the deck I'm using, and here we go. Today is make an effort to contribute. So those are our two cards today, and I quite like these particular cards because the contribution card has a sort of broken shard falling into a hand, or perhaps the hand is throwing up this broken shard to complete the globe here, and then the effort here is actually splitting the hand upwards to the heavens, so it's pointing the right direction and it's making an effort to contribute, because every contribution should be an effort and we should make an effort to contribute. So I quite like the hand symbolism. A lot of this deck has facial symbolism, but it also has hand symbolism, because in tarot cards, for example, and oracle decks, the face is very expressive. The body posture is very important. Where the eyes are looking shows the intent of the card and the character, and the hands really show the agency of the character as well, and whether they're holding, letting go, pointing, sort of foisting away, beckoning. The hand on a tarot card is an incredible piece of symbolism, so always look out for the hands in tarot cards as well as the eyes. We have in the Tarosophist International magazine for the last 3 issues, which is free to members of the Tarot Association, and a series of articles actually on body language in tarot, and it's been quite interesting going into the details of body language and body symbolism within oracle cards themselves. So today we are going to cover a simple NLP technique, which I'll go back and explain briefly what NLP is all about again. So just hello to everyone in the various lockdowns around the world, even from Thailand. Hello Thailand. So we're going to be doing one very simple technique and developing our model that we looked at yesterday in terms of the triangle of change that we are adopting when we do any change work and any tarot card reading, because every tarot card reading is an opportunity for change, and if it doesn't change your client, then it is a wasted opportunity. And to be honest, if every tarot card reading doesn't change the reader, then it's a wasted opportunity as well. So we're going to start off with change, because change, what do you need for change? When you do a tarot card reading and you want to communicate the reading, then that communication has to involve some sort of change. It has to involve the other person receiving your communication and it making a change to their awareness, their perception, their model, their decision making, their beliefs, their self-belief, their values, and so on. So what does the client have to have in order to, and hello Eloy, hello, what does the client have to have in order to be receptive to the change that you're going to do, and how do we engender that change? And that's what we're going to briefly look at today. And then we have our bedtime story from Italo Calvino, Invisible Cities, that I'm reading a separate story, short, very short story, only like sometimes a page long, from Invisible Cities as our bedtime story. And these are not just chosen at random, sort of. Calvino is not talking about invisible cities in each of the stories. He's talking about us and the way that people react, and the way the universe is actually structured. It's a very, very beautiful book, this, one of my favourite books. So what does someone need? Well, I've made a list of some of the things. First of all, the change has to be desirable. The change has to be desirable. An open mind is a good start. If the person is totally closed, then we can still work with that, but it's a lot more difficult to work with someone who is refusing to change, deliberately so. Although that can be a very powerful leverage in order to actually make change. The best people are the people who actually exhibit a strong and clear communication, because then we can utilize it and incorporate it, even if that communication is, I don't believe in the tarot. We can, if that's a strong belief, we can still utilize and incorporate that. We never try and disavow someone of their belief, and we never deny anyone their state. Okay, with my NLP approach at least, we never disavow someone of a belief, and we never deny anyone their state. We enter into their belief, we enter into their state, and then we work outwards and upwards around it, as we'll come to see. It's a lot easier to go into that place with them in a sort of shamanic, walking in emptiness sort of style, and then work outwards from there, rather than get into an immediate conflict with their belief or their state. It's a lot easier to have the sensory acuity to actually observe the state, listen for the belief, and then enter into that and then work outwards. And this is one of the great things Milton H. Erickson did. He would love a resistant client, because as we now know these days, resistance is futile. Erickson had a very good way of working with so-called resistant clients, which we can very easily incorporate into tarot. I love people who tell me that they don't believe in tarot, or that they don't think that tarot works, or whatever it may be, because they have a strong belief, and that's a useful thing to work with. So willingness is also important, as Debbie is saying, but my first one is desirable. We have to make the change desirable, and quite often we have to amplify the current situation implicitly to make the current situation non-desirable, and really ramp that up and make the change desirable. People, for example, if they want to give up smoking, they think that they're giving up something. And giving up something, human beings, well, very loss averse. That's basically how gambling addiction can be formed, because we are loss averse. And so the more we invest in something, the less likely we are to change it, because we do not want to lose the investment. Even if that investment has ruined our lives continually, we don't want to lose the investment. So in NLP we have to turn that around in order to say that what has been apparently gained or invested is what's the best way of putting it, is a negative, and what the change is desirable. Now most people will desire change, but sometimes they will work against it. I had a someone I knew who wanted to be an author, and they had a lot of ideas, but they couldn't get past their first page. And we did some NLP work with them, and it transpired that one of the NLP models is called the positive outcome frame, and I use that a lot in my work. And one of the most important things about it is eliciting what success is to a person, because quite often we concentrate on failure and how the person's failed and what they haven't got right in order to try and improve them, but quite often people are actually scared of success. The change that they want involves something that they don't actually want or believe that they want. The example with the author or would-be author was that she, when I talked about, so when you are successful and you've sold a few books and you're getting well known and you're developing your skills and so on, what will that be like? And as she described it, one of the things she said was, and then I'd be interviewed and people would want to write about me on their blogs, and maybe I'd be on television, but I'd hate all of that because I'm so private. And she just mentioned that as a passing comment, but it was very apparent that that change was non-desirable. Her self-belief, when we think about our model here with values and beliefs and self-image, was as a private person. And so all we needed to do was go through some examples of people who have been very famous, very successful, like J.K. Rowling, Stephen King and so on, who have maintained their privacy very much. And before she had written half of the book because she'd removed one of the obstacles of her belief, and that was a fear of success. It wasn't a fear of success, she desired that, but one of the components of success, unconsciously, it hadn't been recognized, was undesirable. So we have to make sure in our tarot card reading that we're always checking whether the things we're suggesting are desirable to the person. And we can do that simply by asking, say, so this card is recommending that you do such and such. Is that something that you feel that you would look forwards to? And if it isn't, we need to reframe it slightly so that all of the changes we're suggesting are desirable. Now, the next one is possible. And if you go back a few videos, we covered the next step method. And that is very important to give the person a first step. It's all very well and good telling someone that the tarot card reading is going to require them to change their whole lives, but if there's a lot of massive steps to do that, like even moving from one country to another, changing job, all of that will seem impossible. So it's very good to give a change that the first step of which is something possible, something that they can do, and I do this a lot in my readings, that they can do in that day. By the end of the day, I like to have given them some small change that they can have done, even if it's only something like buying a certain book or looking something up or practicing a certain technique. It has to be something that's possible for them to do during that day, because then the unconscious mind can latch on to it as, if this is possible, then the next step will be possible as well. It's why if I'm working with people who are trying to give up smoking, I do not tell them that they are going to give up smoking that day, because that they can make impossible. I need them to be able to do something that is possible to start with, so to break it down into steps and give them a next step that is possible. And my next step method that we covered in a previous video, if you have a look at the labels in the units where all of these videos have been collated, I think there's about 16 hours of video now. Somewhere in there is the next step method, and that gives the next possible step for someone from any tarot card reading. So as Lisa's saying, to make it easy. Yes. Now, the next one is appropriate. It has to be relevant and appropriate for the person. Um, we don't imagine that someone can change their self-image in one day, in 1 hour. It sometimes can happen, but it's unlikely. So to make it easy, as Lisa's saying, we need to make it appropriate for them. Something that isn't too big a shift for them to make during that day. We don't want to turn a reclusive stay-at-home into a exhibitionist stage singer in one day. That wouldn't be entirely appropriate, and it wouldn't be entirely appropriate for their finances, for their family, for their whole life history. They're going to regret it the following day because it would be out of character. We can give changes that are going to stretch their character, but it's better to actually make them appropriate. So when we're doing the tarot card reading, we have to listen and make sure that we're not suggesting something totally inappropriate to that person, just for our own gratification or ego, that we have pushed that person into being someone that they actually aren't. And it is, quite often, particularly on TV shows with hypnosis, quite often they get a fast result. So, for example, they people who are eating a lot, they hypnotize and get them to think of sort of tasting hair and wax and ear wax and terrible things when they're eating and so on. And it stops them eating for a few days, and it's a very fast result, and people are really pleased and things like that. But of course the brain soon recalibrates that taste to be quite desirable, because it isn't appropriate that that character change can happen overnight. And so it's very good for TV, but not very good for long-term change. The next thing is capable. The person has to feel capable, so so that they don't feel fear, as Diane's saying. They have to feel capable of doing it, and that really comes to listening to self-belief and whether the person feels capable. If they don't feel capable of making changes in their life, then it's a good thing to weave into the reading examples of you got here today. It's nice that you arrived on time, because a lot of my clients don't, and I'm very thankful that you arrived on time. And to stress and amplify their capability, even in the smallest way, because then their brain can accept that they might be capable of other things, because they are not a total failure. Even if they say I'm a total failure, Richard Bandler had a good way about going about this as an example, which is, I'm always unsure about myself and what I'm doing. And Bandler quipped, are you sure about that? Are you absolutely sure that you're unsure all of the time? And of course it's a double bind, because obviously the person is then sure that they're unsure, but they can't be sure that they're unsure, because that would be a counter example. And so we only have to provide a few counter examples during the reading of their capability, and it's quite good to say, oh yeah, that's quite right, if they say something about a card, like I've seen that card before, I think it means such and such. Or, oh, is that the lover's card? And you say, yeah, that's the lover's card. Well spotted. That's well pointed out. And you can amplify their capability throughout the reading. There are some terrible readers I've seen over the last 30 or 40 years that are basically there to tell the client almost implicitly that the reader's got it all sorted out and knows all of the answers and is the expert and is living the aspirational life, and the client is not. The client is not worthy almost of receiving the information. And that's the final thing. The client has to feel deserving. This is the really big thing. A client has to, and a person a person has to feel that they deserve to change. If they do not feel that they deserve the change, then it's really hard, really impossible almost, no matter what you divine for them, what you interpret for them to make the change. Okay, so they have to feel deserving of it. They have to feel some worth, some value, some self-belief in order for that change to then be deserved. And that is one of the biggest ones I found in all of the years of doing this, that really needs to be brought up, recognised, installed, amplified, stated within the reading, that the person deserves, as much as any human being on the planet, the life that they can lead. Because a lot of people have been taught that they don't deserve what other people have, or what, more importantly, they themselves can have. And to amplify their nature of being deserving is a very powerful thing to do in change work. Obviously, we don't ramp it inappropriately. Just because someone feels as if they deserve everything doesn't mean that they have the capability to achieve it. And again, we have to balance all of these things at the same time. And yeah, part of this is the same as the 10 stone story. So just as I wrote down my notes, these are the things for change to sit in. It has to be desirable, possible, appropriate, the person has to feel capable, and most of all, they have to feel as if they are deserving of the change itself. And if you have the field for these and bring their attention to the right things, then they can make that change far more easily and efficiently than if they don't have some of these things. Okay, so this is just part of the background concepts that we're going to be working with and drop the methods into in order to see how these things work. But I need to say what's important first so that we know why the methods are there, because it's no use having lots of methods if you don't know which one's going to be important to use at any particular time. Now, the actual method that I want you to practice is a hypnosis method, and it works like this. I want you to practice this in the same way that you might have been practicing our pivot grammar, grammar pivot hour, practicing have, might, you, and also linking words. We practice linking words, for example, and, when, so, because, to chain sentences together. Now, the linking words is very important in what we're now going to do. Okay, you can combine linking words, and that your practice with that, the better you are getting at that, the better you'll get at this next method that builds into it. So this method is basically the linchpin of hypnosis and persuasive language, and it is the model of truism suggestion. Truism suggestion. And it works like this. You basically say two true things before you make a suggestion. Okay? And in hypnotherapy, along with a lot of other approaches and techniques in order to generate an altered state, we do it like this. So say, for example, if I was talking to a client in this room, it's a lot easier to teach this in person because you'd be in the room with me and we could see what we could see and I could see you. So I might say something like, as you sit, breathing in and out in this room, looking at the yellow wall, feeling a little more relaxed now. Okay, so that's just a segment. So what I've done there is, as you sit in this room, which is verifiable, it's a truism, and I've added breathing because I might have noticed the person breathing, and hopefully they are doing, so that's a truism, and the person can verify that in their own experience. They don't have to take my word for it, they don't have to make a leap of faith to believe it. It's actually happening, so it's a truism. And then I mentioned looking at the yellow wall. The person might be looking at the yellow wall. And then, having made two truisms, I make a suggestion. Okay? So truism, truism, suggestion. Truism, truism, suggestion. As you sit in this room, looking at the yellow wall, listening to the sound of my voice, relaxing a little further now. Okay, so relaxing a little further now is a suggestion, but it has been tagged on to the end of two truisms, and it makes it far more effective to skip in the suggestions as opposed to just telling them you are feeling sleepy now. That's just a straight suggestion. It's not a truism, it's not verifiable, and it can be resisted by the conscious mind. Hypnosis works by bypassing the critical faculty, and that's why I gave the example 2 sessions ago of not thinking of that giraffe. Do not think of the giraffe, because we need to demonstrate how to bypass your critical faculty, your conscious mind, in order to activate your unconscious processes far more powerfully as you can't not think of a giraffe every time I go on about the damn giraffe on a motorcycle. It just becomes present. So truism, suggestion is very important. Then with linking words and even some pivot grammar, if you practice, already these basic techniques, which are pared down from the whole of hypnotherapeutic practice and NLP, things I found work, you basically become a hypnotherapist quite quickly, because if you listen to this example, I'll make up an example, you'll hear pivot grammar, linking words, truism, suggestion in a very hypnotherapeutic way, okay, or certainly a hypnotic way. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to imagine someone is in this room with me. Okay, so as you listen to my voice, hearing the spaces between the words, wondering what might be happening next, noticing your blinking, and as you do, beginning to realize just how slow I could make the words now for you now, just beginning to notice, sat still in this room with your eyes open or closed, and beginning to think just of all of the times that you may have been in a deep altered state, whilst wondering how it could be possible, wondering it could be how the deep state begins wherever you find it most, in those places that just happen to be whilst you are sitting in this room, breathing and blinking, noticing those things as easy as you can find a deeper sense of peace when you blink. It could be as simple as be could blinking now. And if you carry on like that for about half an hour, then someone will slowly alter their state and you can go with them as well. You can even do it to yourself, okay? So, and that is just simply, it makes it very easy by just having the basic rules. You don't have to learn a complex script. It can be, one of my client rooms used to be in a clinic that for a good 6 months had a building site outside it. So a lot of my hypnotherapeutic sessions with clients would be along the lines of, and as you sit and hear the hammers outside, banging and banging, whatever changes could be built in a building that we cannot see yet are like the things that soaring may begin to happen. And you'll notice just how the soaring is like breathing in and out, because we don't know what attachments it's cutting away as we begin to notice our eyes closing and the drilling start deeper and deeper now. And I would have to incorporate all of the sounds of the building site outside into the scripts, into the made up scripts I was going along. Okay, so that's basically all I wanted to demonstrate and to teach today, because obviously you need to practice that so that you can take a tarot card, that was the one we used yesterday, so let's find a different one, and be able to just weave in every now and again some persuasive, deep language into your tarot card readings by, for example, making 2 truisms and a suggestion. Because as we see the man on the 3 of Wands holding tightly one of the wands, looking out to the ships, feeling confident in his own abilities. Okay, so as we look at the man holding the 3 wands, holding one of them and looking at his ships, feeling confident of his abilities, is a suggestion to our client, to the other person, of feeling confident in their abilities before we say, this card is saying you should feel confident. Isn't that a terrible thing to say when you've got a better way of saying it now? Okay, just telling a client, this card says that you should feel confident, because the client may not feel that they deserve to feel confident. They may not feel it's desirable to feel confident because it will bring them attention. They may not feel it possible to be confident. They may not feel it appropriate. They may not feel capable or deserving of that at all. So it is no use telling them that this card means that they have to be a certain thing. It is far easier to gently say, as we look at that card and notice how rich the clothes are of the merchant and how he's looking at the ship sailing away, feeling, just looking at him, how confident he's standing now, knowing that those ships are now in motion. Just like every ship sometimes has to travel a long way to get to where it's going successfully. To get to where it's going successfully. Even if we cannot see that yet, we know it in the way he has stood. And so we can weave suggestions and truisms and linking words all in just a single card without the client even noticing it. And then they leave the reading thinking, I've no idea what happened there, but damn, I'm going to make some changes in my life and I feel capable of doing it and I deserve these changes. And off they go. And then you've given them a very powerful reading and not wasted an opportunity with them. And as Diane's saying as well, it is easy to feel deficient if that's sort of what is being implied by you being an expert tarot card reader telling somebody else your advice that they have been somehow too stupid or somehow incapable of ever realizing, but thank God they now have you as an expert in order to tell them how they've screwed up their life. That is bound to instill a lot of confidence in them, and this is not what we want to do with our clients or other people at all. We want to be on their side and use the opportunity with our tarot cards to lift them into the changes that are awaiting them, and that they're capable and that are appropriate for them and that they deserve. Okay, so I'd like to read what happens when perhaps that isn't the case in one of our bedtime stories from Italo, Calvino, Invisible Cities. Your homework is to practice a few truism suggestions, but most importantly, remember the rule. The easiest way to learn this stuff is to listen to other people. Politicians, listen to politicians using truism suggestion. It's very effective and very pernicious. Meanwhile, we are going to take a quick visit to our bedtime story and the city of Zobeide. So from there, after 6 days and 7 nights, you arrive at Zobeide, the White City, well exposed to the moon, with streets wound about themselves as if in a tight skein. They tell this tale of its foundation. Men of various nations had an identical dream. They each saw a woman running at night through an unknown city. She was seen from behind with long hair, and she was naked. They dreamed of pursuing her. As they twisted and turned, each of them lost her. After the dream, they each set out in search of that city. They never found it, but they found one another, and then they decided to build a city like the one of which each of them had dreamt. In laying out the streets, each followed the course of his pursuit. At the spot where they had lost the fugitive's trail, they arranged spaces and walls differently from the dream, so that she would be unable to escape should she appear again. This was the city of Zobeide, where they settled, waiting for that scene to be repeated one night. None of them, asleep or awake, ever saw the woman again. The city's streets were streets where they went to work every day, with no link anymore to the dreamed chase, which, for that matter, had long been forgotten. New men arrived from other lands, having had a dream like theirs, and in the city of Zobeide they recognized something of the streets of their dream, and they changed the positions of arcades and stairways, avenues, to remember more closely the path of the pursued woman. And so, at the spot where she had vanished, there would also remain no avenue of escape. The first to arrive could not understand what drew these people to Zobeide, this ugly city, this trap. And that is the city of Zobeide from Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities. Oh, and great, someone, Emma, thank you, with the Brill lesson just finished. Yeah, the Brill readings with NLP class that we have on our course list, on our course syllabus, in our catalogue, uses a lot of NLP techniques as well. And I hope all of these sessions are going to intertwine with all of our courses, all of our books, so that you'll get a really nice idea of what really underpins them, of the approach, of the passion that I have for teaching particular things, and the things I find useful in reading as well. And I look forward to hearing your tips, tricks, techniques as well in the Facebook group. So we're dead on about 40 minutes. There are now excuse me, about 16 hours of recordings. If you haven't watched through all of them, then well done. And I would encourage you to have a look through the listings to see if there's anything that might be of use to you in your readings and your style as well. Okay, so thanks a lot. Stay safe, stay sane. We will eventually be flattening the curve of this pandemic and getting out the other side, and hopefully all as safe and as sane and as well as possible and ready for whatever follows. Okay, take care everyone. Practice your truism and suggestions, and listen for other people using it as well. Okay, bye for now.